Now, last week, we talked about different ways to practice. And we talked about how, of course, getting the benefits of Tai Chi, you have to apply the underlying principles. And one of those underlying principles is continuous movement, linked without breaks. That's a very unique thing to Tai Chi, is once we start moving, that movement continues to flow until we end the form. Now, one of the ways that we talked about last week to practice differently is to do a start and stop form. And if you remember, when we did that start and stop form, it was like this. If we start with our part the wild horse's mane, and we stopped and took inventory. Is our stance wide enough? Are we lowering our center of gravity? Do we have our arms open and loose in a rounded position? And then we actually shortened the form a little. Instead of doing 3 part the wild horse's mane, we stepped up and we did white crane, spreads its wings. And now take inventory. Is this left foot completely empty? Can we use our rotation now to go into our brush knee? Stop. Take inventory. Are my shoulders in harmony with my hips? Am I overreaching, or am I in a good, relaxed, balanced position? And then I can step up into my play the guitar. So we're not going to do the whole start and stop form. I do encourage you to go back to that episode and practice doing that start and stop. And then practice with me with this episode of the inside out form, because this is really the quintessential continuous motion. You're doing the form inside out, where you start from the middle and then you add a piece here, you add a piece here, then you add, and you actually end up doing the form many times through, keeping that motion going. So we're going to do that today. I'm also going to add an additional challenge that as each time we do the ward off sequence, we're going to change. We're going to add a different underlying principle. We're going to think about continuous motion throughout the whole thing. That one's going to linked without breaks. That will be there throughout the entire form. But each time we do ward off, I'm going to add a different underlying principle. So we're really going to work on focusing, applying those underlying principles as we do this form. So make sure you have plenty of room. I want you to get up. I want you to do this inside out form with me, and let's have some fun with it. So we start in the middle, which is the ward off sequence. So holding that ball, thinking of continuous movement, but now also adding columns. Stepping out, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Make sure your shoulders are in harmony with your hips. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Keep that motion going. Now think about being suspended from the crown of your head. Stepping out, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Coming into a single whip. Think about shoulders above hips. Don't overreach. Wave hands like clouds. Remember to lift from the crown of your head. It's not a stiff posture, it's a relaxed posture. coming into a single whip. But now we're going to go back with repulse the monkey. Remember, you're not leaning back. You're keeping those shoulders above your hips, even though you're stepping backwards. And now we're back to ward off. So now we're going to add substantial and insubstantial, keeping this motion going. And in our ward off, we're not actually locomoting forward or backward, but we are shifting our weight forward, shifting back, still keeping those columns intact, shifting forward, bringing our weight over to the right so we can keep this continuous motion going. Substantial and insubstantial differentiation is really important to keeping that motion going in a balanced and fluid way. Pushing chi, bringing your weight over to the left, back to the right, forming a bird's beak, and single whip. Wave hands like clouds. You're filling that left leg, letting the right leg become empty so the right can step in. Now you're filling that right, left can step out. Letting that right leg come in. Feel that substantial and insubstantial change as you do your wave hands like clouds. And as the weight comes to the right, form a bird's beak and single whip. High pat on horse. And now you're just going to bring your weight back into play the guitar. Repulse the monkey. Your substantial and insubstantial matters in repulse the monkey. Let that right leg become completely empty before you step back. And now we're here at the ward off again. Let's think about rotation. Rotating into this motion, keeping our shoulders above our hips, feeling that substantial and insubstantial change, but rotating. Pushing chi. As we rotate to bring ourselves to the other side, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Bringing our weight over to the left, using that rotation, and coming into our single whip. Wave hands like clouds. That rotation actually helps your shoulders and your whole body remain relaxed. Single whip. High pat on horse. Kick, smash, and box the ears. Rotating over that left shoulder, kicking left, and now snake creeps. Using that body to rotate into your pheasant stance. Stepping down, rotating, and coming into white crane, spreads its wings. Using that rotation to move yourself into your brush knee. Think about how much power there is from this rotation as you're addressing your opponent with your brush knee. Stepping up, play the guitar. Repulse the monkey. Again, that rotation gives you power to get away from your opponent. And now you're back to your ward off. I want you to think about being rooted and grounded. Grasp the bird's tail. Think if you can lower your center of gravity just a little bit here. Feel the ground. Make sure your stance is nice and stable. It's part of being rooted and grounded. Ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Coming into your single whip, you rotate and ground. Now wave hands like clouds. Again, making sure you feel that substantial and insubstantial change. Your shoulders are still in harmony with your hips. Allowing yourself to feel the ground. Single whip. Part of being rooted and grounded is also being able to understand the meaning of each of these movements. The meaning behind what are you doing to your opponent as you kick, smash, and box the ears. Kicking left. Lowering your center of gravity as much as you can to smoothly come into that snake creeps, pheasant stands. Snake creeps, pheasant stands. Stepping into fair lady works the shuttle. Keeping yourself as low as you can. Think about blocking something coming above you. And now stepping up, holding that ball, part the wild horse's mane. Think about your stance. Make sure it's wide enough and low enough to be stable, to be rooted. Think about what you're doing as you come against your opponent here. White crane spreads its wings. And brush knee. Again, think about your stance. Make sure it's not too narrow. You're not overreaching. Stepping up. Play the guitar. Repulse the monkey. Not only using that rotation, but keeping yourself stable against your opponent, using the power to get away. And now you're back to your ward off. Think about leading from the Dantian. The Dantian is the leader of all your movement. It's what helps keep those columns intact. It's what drives that rotation. It's what gives you the power. It helps keep you rooted as you move from your center. Pushing chi. Think about moving from that Dantian. You're letting that Dantian come over your base of support, coming into your single whip, rotating, and now using that Dantian to lead your wave hands like clouds. It comes over your right to allow that substantial and insubstantial change. And now it's over your left so your right can move. Single whip. High pat on horse. As you're rooted and yet using that dantian to help you be stable in your kick, smash, and box the ears, lowering that center of gravity, keeping yourself balanced, kicking left. Lower your center here, move from the dantian, letting it come over that left leg so your right leg can become empty for pheasant stands. And again, snake creeps, lead with your dantian, pheasant stands. Fair lady works the shuttle. Fair lady works the shuttle. Pick the needle up from the sea bottom. Your dantian moves back so that you can remain balanced. Fan through the back. Turning, and again, using the power of the rotation from the dantian to come into your deflect, intercept, and punch. But we still need to add one more. Preparation. Your dantian is moving up, and then you're settling that energy in that dantian. Gathering that energy, part the wild horse's mane. Part the wild horse's mane. One more, part the wild horse's mane. Stepping up, white crane spreads its wings. And it's leading from the dantian here that starts that rotation so you can bring the power into your brush knee. Keeping yourself balanced. Brush knee. One more brush knee. Stepping up, play the guitar. Repulse the monkey. Again, focusing on your core, letting that dantian allow that rotation to drive that substantial and insubstantial change. And one more, ward off. I want you to think about your ball of energy. Think about being open and loose. Leading that energy through your body, letting it go all the way through. And then what are you doing with that energy? Bringing it into your opponent. Pushing that energy into them. Gathering the energy here, holding that ball, and ward off. Don't lose that energy. Lead it. And remember, the dantian is leading here. That's the center of your energy. Let all of your motions be open, loose, and rounded so that energy can flow. We don't have any locked joints. Think of all the circular motions as we move into wave hands like clouds. And you're pulling this ball of energy across your body. Single whip. High pat on horse. Gathering that energy to pull it up from the ground, being rooted and grounded to kick, smash, and box the ears. Turning again, pull that energy up and kick. Snake creeps. Think about how circular you are here as you move from your dantian, holding that ball of energy in front into your pheasant stance. Snake creeps. Again, holding that ball, pheasant stands. Gather the energy here to come into Fair Lady works the shuttle. Again, holding that ball, Fair Lady works the shuttle. Pick the needle up from the sea bottom. Come up, block, fan through the back. Gathering that energy to come into your deflect, intercept and punch. Pushing chi. And return the tiger to the mountain. And close. So clearly with the inside out form, you've just done Tai Chi for about 20 minutes now, continually moving, letting that energy flow, focusing on those underlying principles. And if you do this by yourself and you really practice that inside out form, not only is it going to help your mental focus, but it's also going to help you get into that meditative effect of Tai Chi, which is very healthy for your body. It allows your body to slow down, to open up, to release stress. So it might seem a little stressful to do the form in a different way like this, taking it on a different path, doing it inside out. But really, once you practice and you get good at this, it's helping your body release stress because it is very meditative.